Drake wasn't done taking the battle from the booth to the courtroom, and this morning, the judge just handed him another L.
Many of you probably remember when Drake pursued legal action against Universal Music Group last year, claiming they unfairly promoted Kendrick Lamar's track, Not Like Us. Through his company, Frozen Moments LLC, Drake and his legal team alleged that both Universal and Spotify orchestrated an illegal scheme involving bot networks, payola, and undisclosed agreements designed to artificially inflate the song's chart performance and streaming numbers. Drake's lawyers contended that Universal didn't exercise restraint in their efforts to push the record. They asserted the label conducted an aggressive campaign to manipulate streaming platforms and radio stations in Kendrick's favor. Universal responded swiftly and forcefully, dismissing these allegations as baseless and offensive. They maintained that the song's success reflected genuine listener preference, nothing more. At that time, neither Kendrick nor Spotify offered public statements in response. It's worth noting this wasn't initially a full lawsuit. It was classified as a pre-action petition, meaning Drake's team was attempting to preserve evidence for a potential future legal case. The central focus was Not Like Us itself, which proved to be the defining moment in the Drake-Kendrick rivalry. Drake's filing highlighted the track's extraordinary performance. 96 million streams within a week, reaching #1 domestically, and eventually achieving global success. His legal team argued these achievements were artificially manufactured. They submitted evidence suggesting Universal reduced royalty rates by 30% to encourage Spotify's algorithm to recommend the song more prominently. Additionally, they cited sources claiming people were compensated $2,500 to operate bot accounts that streamed the track continuously, essentially manufacturing its viral status. Some listeners also reported unusual behavior from Apple's voice assistant, which allegedly played Not Like Us when asked to play Drake's album Certified Lover Boy. Drake's attorneys claimed he attempted to resolve matters privately, but Universal showed no interest in accountability. They alleged the company even attempted to cover up the situation by terminating employees perceived as too loyal to Drake. Their fundamental argument was straightforward. Streaming represents a zero-sum competition where boosting one artist inherently diminishes another. In Drake's view, this is precisely what transpired. Universal flatly rejected every claim, calling them preposterous and reminding the public that listeners make their own choices about what music to support. Since these revelations emerged after the main rivalry concluded, they significantly shaped public perception of Drake, portraying him as unwilling to accept defeat and attempting to win in court what he lost culturally. The broader sentiment became that Drake couldn't move forward and was using litigation to contest what music had already decided. The timing added symbolic weight when the petition dropped just days after Kendrick surprise released his album GNX, widely interpreted as a continuation of the Not Like Us narrative. A few weeks later in January, Drake escalated matters by filing a formal defamation lawsuit against Universal Music Group, the very label that had supported his entire career. Recently, circumstances shifted dramatically. A judge dismissed Drake's defamation case entirely. The court determined that Kendrick's lyrics constituted opinion rather than factual statements, rendering them non-actionable. Essentially, the judge ruled that this exchange was a component of a competitive rap battle characterized by artistic expression, not literal accusations meant to be believed as factual truth. This verdict directly addressed Drake's core argument, that Universal had damaged his reputation both by promoting Not Like Us, and by what he characterized as artificially inflating its metrics. It's significant that the concept of whether the song's success was entirely organic had been debated long before Drake's legal intervention. Online discussions about the track's authenticity and reach had already been happening. When Drake filed his lawsuit, many people interpreted this as confirmation that their suspicions might have validity. However, as the case progressed, public opinion turned against him. Critics labeled him a sore loser attempting to weaponize the legal system against a musical defeat already determined by the industry. My initial interpretation of this situation centered on narrative control. Drake appeared determined to expose what he believed were behind-the-scenes maneuvers that gave Kendrick an unfair advantage. He seemingly wanted to reveal mechanisms he felt operated against him. The lawsuit wasn't primarily about the song itself but rather the infrastructure supporting it, or what Drake alleged was propping it up. When he filed the petition and made accusations about artificial inflation, he seemed to be challenging what he viewed as a rigged system. Yet this argument contains an inherent contradiction. Drake himself represents the machine he's criticizing. He's benefited extensively from identical systems throughout his career: playlist placements, radio promotion, strategic marketing campaigns. He's consistently ranked among the industry's most prominent figures. For him to suddenly position himself as a victim of unfair systems feels contradictory, though understandably, he presented his perspective anyway. Regarding Kendrick specifically, I don't believe he would knowingly participate in fraudulent activity. His entire professional foundation rests on authenticity and artistic integrity. The idea that he'd knowingly enable manipulation contradicts his established identity. However, I do think the industrial machinery surrounding both artists can blur distinctions between legitimate marketing and potentially questionable practices. At their level of prominence, operations become complex. Labels pursue profit through methods that might cross ethical lines without the artists necessarily being aware these decisions are happening. My assessment has consistently been that Not Like Us received more intensive promotion than typical rap records, not because Kendrick required assistance, but because Universal recognized the momentum potential. The label understood the cultural impact this particular record could generate, which it ultimately did, spawning significant conversation. Following the recent court decision, it's evident Drake's strategy didn't achieve his desired outcome. He attempted to transform what he viewed as manipulation into a legal claim, but the judge essentially said this was artistic battle, not factual dispute. When someone loses a rap competition and brings it to court, the narrative shifts. Rather than defending fairness, the person appears to be refusing to accept defeat. Drake possesses considerable intelligence and strategic thinking within hip-hop. He carefully constructs his public image and long-term legacy. I believe this lawsuit aimed to reshape how this historical moment might be remembered in future years. However, the dismissal produced the opposite result. Instead of reframing the narrative, it solidified Kendrick's victory even more decisively. Looking at the specifics of why the court dismissed the case, Judge Jeanette Vargas ruled that when Kendrick made accusations against Drake in his lyrics, these constituted opinion rather than verifiable fact. The court classified them as non-actionable. The judge explained that reasonable listeners would understand this as lyrical competition, essentially a verbal sparring match, not as reported truth. In a comprehensive 38-page decision, Judge Vargas characterized the Drake-Kendrick feud as perhaps the most significant rap battle in the genre's documented history. She noted that both artists deployed inflammatory language and harsh accusations, and that any person listening would recognize this as artistic combat rather than journalism. She even referenced Drake's own tailor-made freestyle, where he utilized an artificially generated Tupac voice to make allegations against Kendrick. The judge then pointed out that Kendrick's response, his line about Drake's preferences, was actually an echo of Drake's own earlier statement. According to the judge's analysis, Kendrick wasn't creating new allegations but responding to something Drake himself had introduced into their exchange. This contextual understanding became crucial to the dismissal. The court established that rap feuds inherently involve exaggeration, trash talk, and provocative language that listeners understand as performance, not reporting. Drake's legal team had maintained that Universal orchestrated a campaign to transform Kendrick's record into a manufactured viral sensation that spread damaging falsehoods. The judge disagreed, concluding that even statements appearing factual in nature can be classified as opinion when situated within disputes or heated artistic interactions. Following the ruling, Universal didn't restrain their response. They declared Drake's lawsuit an attack on artistic freedom and creative expression, asserting it should never have proceeded. They expressed satisfaction with the outcome and confirmed their intention to maintain their working relationship with Drake. Drake's representatives announced his intention to appeal, seeking judicial reconsideration. Kendrick has remained silent throughout the legal proceedings, offering no public commentary. It appears Drake has experienced a final defeat in this extended conflict with Kendrick. However, the lawsuit's actual target was never Kendrick himself. It concerned the system and infrastructure that Drake believed operated against him. From the beginning, I was skeptical this case would succeed in court. The only aspect I thought might possibly have merit was the most serious allegation, given how damaging such claims are. But here's the fundamental issue. Engaging in a rap battle means entering the court of public opinion, not an actual legal arena. Drake seemed to be fighting the perception, the memes, the media narratives. This represented a losing battle from its inception. Still, nobody knows precisely why Drake pursued this course, given his demonstrated strategic intelligence and calculated approach. Something deeper may have motivated his persistence. My best assessment remains narrative control, attempting to influence how this moment would be remembered despite the unfavorable outcome. But I'm genuinely interested in hearing your perspective. Was Drake protecting his legacy, or does this read as bitter refusal to accept defeat? Drop a like before you leave and share your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious what you think. Either way, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.